So we have museums sometimes in our own homes, and we have pictures, but do we really look at the pictures and see what they say? So with Black Wall Street, basically the anniversary, we have a 100-year anniversary right now. So I'm wearing the shirt to honor what has happened in the past, recognize it, but look at this. Greenwood is a neighborhood in Tulsa, Oklahoma. As one of the most successful and wealthiest African American communities in the United States during the early 20th century, it was popularly known as America's, quote, Black Wall Street, unquote, until the Tulsa race riot of 1921. During the oil boom of the 1910s, the area of northeast Oklahoma around Tulsa flourished. The area was home to several prominent black businessmen, many of them multi-millionaires. Greenwood boasted a variety of thriving businesses that were very successful up until the Tulsa race riot. Race riot. Why? Not only did black Americans want to contribute to the success of their own shops, but there were also racial segregation laws that prevented them from shopping anywhere other than Greenwood. The Tulsa race riot was a large-scale, racially motivated conflict on May 31st and June 1st, 1921, in which a group of white people attacked the black community of Tulsa, Oklahoma. It resulted in the Greenwood District, also known as the Black Wall Street, and the wealthiest black community in the United States, being burned to the ground. During the 16 hours of assault, more than 800 people were admitted to local white hospitals with injuries. The two black hospitals were burned down. And police arrested and detained more than 6,000 black Greenwood residents at 3 local facilities. An estimated 10,000 blacks were left homeless, and 35 city blocks composed of 1,256 residences were destroyed by fire. The official count of the dead by the Oklahoma Department of Vital Statistics was 39, but other estimates of black fatalities vary from 55 to about 300. The events of the riot were long omitted from local and state histories. The Tulsa race riot of 1921 was rarely mentioned in history books, classrooms, or even in private. Following the riots, the area was rebuilt and thrived until the 1960s, when desegregation allowed blacks to shop in areas that were restricted before. Let's deal with this shopping and commerce and capitalism. Let's deal with the naked truth of that. Now, as we deal with the naked truth of commerce and capitalism, I have some pretty decent clothes. Basically, I'm just going to show you the realities of the clothes and what we have here. I have a nice shirt. It's a long sleeve shirt, and here it says made in Egypt. 3 nice shirts here. Haven't even worn them yet, but this one says made in El Salvador. This one's made in Sri Lanka. This one's made in Vietnam. A nice little shirt here. This is made in India. Nice little sweater. Sweater's made in China. Zip down sweater. Nice little sweatpants. This is made in Jordan. Got some shorts. Go under the sweatpants. These are made in Thailand. Nice little sweatshirt. Alma mater. Sweatshirt is made in Honduras. Old Navy. And that's got to be made in the United States. Old Navy. Sound like an American company. This is made in Korea. Now check this out. Adidas. I got 2 Adidas sweatsuits. One of them got this 10 years ago. This is made in Cambodia. Now, that's a nice sweatsuit. I got one 40 years old. Check this out. Nice Adidas sweatsuit, but look at this one. 40 years ago, it says made in USA. So all these clothes, not even made in America. So that's what capitalism is all about. Finding the cheapest place, cheapest labor so you can produce these products. However, we can get our own products. This is a sister out of Canada. She's actually from Nigeria, but she is my seamstress. Makes my outfits. It's a short sleeve outfit with pants, a long sleeve outfit with pants. We have to start making our own products and go back to being Black Wall Street. You know, we don't read enough like we should. I find it fascinating as I go back 100 years, as we talked about, and look at history. In one particular document, Black Chronicle, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but it's just fascinating as you go through the articles and you look what was going on back 100 years ago in between that time, and you look at 2021 and you look at all the problems that we're having, from Kenosha, Wisconsin, to what's going on down in Georgia, to all these problems with police brutality and violence and people getting killed and shot, and what is really happening. Even though they said the Tulsa race riot, it wasn't a race riot, it was a massacre. People just trying to live and protect themselves. They weren't race rioting against white people. It was white people destroying the property of the black people. So it was a massacre. So when you start reading, you start looking at the stories, it's just really interesting. So let me spend some time reading a few of the articles from the Black Chronicle, and then I'm going to share with you some books, and then it will be up to you to do some homework to try to figure all this out. Look at this. This is 1910, Mexico. This is March 19th. A black reporter for the Chicago Defender has called Mexico a black man's country. There is not a drugstore in the capital city, writes G.W. Slaughter, that will refuse a Negro a drink of ice cream soda. In several cases, whites and blacks have intermarried without causing a comment. Now, this is 1910, Mexico. He calls the courts especially fair. In one case, he says, a Texas ruffian shot a Negro in Mexico territory. When brought before the judge, the Texan pleaded he was defending the white man's superiority. We heard that before in 2021. But this is a country for every man, the judge said. You shall be shot. This is my sentence. President Taft tried to persuade President Diaz of Mexico to pardon the Texan, but he refused. Interesting story. That's 1910. Even in 1910, when we talk about Oklahoma, look at this. Muskogee Negroes kept off sidewalks. It says April 1st, 1910. Negro women may walk on the sidewalks here, but black men must keep to the street. Extra sheriffs have been sworn in to enforce this law. Further, Negro women must stand on the rear platform of the new pay-as-you-go cars, and Negro men on the front. When passing through the cars, black men must remove their hats. This is 1910. Look what's going on in 2021, still not being respected. And look at the problems that exist. Even the military brothers coming back from World War. It says, look at this. The Red Summer. A call to returning soldiers. We are returning from war. We stand again to look America squarely in the face. We sing. This country of ours, despite all its better souls have done and dreamed, is yet a shameful land. It lynches. It disenfranchises its own citizens. It encourages ignorance. It steals from us. It insults us. This country to which we soldiers of democracy return, this is the fatherland for which we fought, but it is our fatherland. It was right for us to fight. The faults of our country are our faults. Under similar circumstances, we would fight again. But by the God of heaven, we are cowards and jackasses if now that war is over, we do not marshal every ounce of our brain and brawn to fight a sterner, longer, and more unbending battle against the forces of hell in our own land. We return from fighting. We return fighting. Make way for democracy. We saved it in France, and by the great Jehovah, we will save it in the United States of America. Or know the reason why. Look at this. DC Negroes use guns for protection. July 30th, 1919. And again, 1919, 2021. This is 2 years before Tulsa. The violent riots here 2 weeks ago began shortly after Police Chief Raymond Pullman ordered his men to jail Negroes found on the streets at night if they could not give satisfactory reasons for being there. Citywide violence erupted the next day when white soldiers and sailors pulled Negroes off streetcars and beat them unconscious. We could probably even fast forward to say what's going to happen with these so-called vaccine passports, vaccine cards, whatever is going on with that. In that same year, Chicago erupted. I don't know if those who know Chicago history, there's been some stories on CNN about it. It says the trouble began on Sunday, July 27th, after an 18-year-old black swimmer, Eugene Williams, drifted across an imaginary line separating the white and Negro sections of the 29th Street beach. Stones were thrown at Williams, who was clinging to a railroad tie. The boy took 2 strokes before he went down. Most witnesses believe he had been hit. Angry Negroes on the beach asked the policeman to arrest one of the stone throwers, but he refused and instead arrested a Negro on a white man's complaint. Blacks mobbed the policeman. So now we got a situation where all this violence is going on in 1919. That's why I call it the Red Summer. And so we know with Tulsa, that was 21. So now we got all this precedent that was going on prior to. Look at this. It says Longview riot. It says last month, this is July 1919. Last month's riot at Longview, Texas occurred after Professor Jones, a colored man, found out he was to be lynched. Whites had accused Jones of telling the Chicago Defender about a recent lynching. He took refuge in the home of a friend, Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis immediately called together a group of the town's colored men and prepared for defense. At midnight, a crowd of white men arrived. When 4 rushed onto the porch shouting for Jones, Dr. Davis opened fire. In the battle that followed, 11 whites were killed. The mob retreated, but reformed the next day. In the attacks that followed, although Jones and Davis escaped, their homes were burned and a Negro couple who lived nearby were seriously wounded. A Longview newspaper has reported that the Negroes are not planning anything, but will defend themselves if attacked. Now, these are stories coming from the Black Chronicle. These are stories coming from black journalists. These are stories that are written from our perspective to assist us in knowing what is really going on. DC Klan founded. This is 1919, July 11th. A Ku Klux Klan chapter has recently formed in the Washington, D.C. area. It is patterned on the Klan of Reconstruction days. The white terrorist organization is believed to have organized in response to the activity of the NAACP, the Lincoln League, and other equal rights organizations. Look at all this craziness that every time there's something going on a racial level or ethnic tone, you now have a backlash from melanin recessive people saying that now, like with Blue Lives Matter. First it was Black Lives Matter, then it was Blue Lives Matter, then with police. All these responses, critical race theory is going on right now. So now you got these responses. Now people have their own way of saying what real history in Texas is, and just a mess. But when you read history and you see what was going on way back then, you see nothing's really changed because the mindset of us has not changed. Look at this. It says druggist loses license. Look at this one. Tent town forms in pits. This is 1919 in July. It says a tent town may soon appear in the congested Hill District, a Negro section. Several black families, and this is Pittsburgh now, several black families are planning to set up tents on the city property and to live in them until winter. Rents in the Hill District area are said to have been boosted so high that black families are being forced to vacate their homes. That's 1990. It's 2021. one and the same things are happening. I was at a conference the other week, and a sister named Mindy Fullylove was reporting on this whole issue of urban renewal called a root shock. So this is, again, I wouldn't even want to call it old school. It's just history. We just don't pay attention to what's really happening. And this last story I read from here, it says, disappointed recruiter returns south. That's the title of the article. Chicago, Illinois, July 30th, 1919. It says, a Southern labor agent who came to the North looking for Negroes to work in a Tennessee milling company has been disappointed. Of the 300 black men he interviewed for laborers' jobs, not one volunteered. The labor agent told the Chicago Defender that a returning Negro would have to abide by the customs of the South. In the North, he had become accustomed to riding in the front of streetcars, eating in public restaurants with whites, or having the unrestricted use of parks, he was advised not to take the job. Also, the agent admitted there would be a little trouble when a northern black first returned. Quote, we would have to keep a close watch on every man we take back, unquote, he said. Quote, the northern Negro becomes uppish when told to do something by a white man and wants to use his fist freely. Of course, this wouldn't do in the South. They must listen to us and obey us first of all, unquote. The last sentence says, yesterday, the agent returned to the South alone. So it's interesting how the articles are written 20 years ago. And you look at the dynamics of what's going on in history today, you got to read some books. This whole issue of economics, perhaps you've heard of him, but you need to know him. Brother Claude Anderson, on his first book's called Black Labor, White Wealth, The Search for Power and Economic Justice. All this has already been discussed. Just need to read the book. I think he did this back in 94. So it's old school. Yep, 1994, Black Labor and White Wealth. He also wrote Powernomics. Again, we have to find a way to put our resources together so we can make things stand. A national plan to empower Black America. So in his he had written some other books. One of them is called Dirty Little Secrets, and there's some other things he talks in there about what's going on with history, but about Black history, its heroes and other troublemakers. So definitely look up Claude Anderson. A white woman named Jane Meyer wrote a book called Dark Money, looking at the history of billionaires and how they made this whole radical right come about. You think about this whole Tea Party. The Tea Party only came about because of Obama. You know, it's like a backlash against a black man in the White House, so now you got the Tea Party. It was like back in the day when you had Strom Thurmond and Jesse Helms, when they didn't like all the things that were going on with the Democrats, they created the Dixiecrats. So always these backlashes to what's really going on in terms of making changes in our society. Ian Bremmer wrote a book called Us versus Them. You check that out. The Failure of Globalism. So when I showed you all those clothes earlier and made from different parts of the world, it's not like free trade. It's like, it looks like it's free because it's like those places can make those items, but those people are being exploited in those areas. They pay what, $2 or maybe some cents, and you pay $100 for the item. That's not free trade. That's exploitation. That's why we're talking about the naked truth on economic exploitation. Perhaps you've heard of him, maybe not, but Reginald Lewis, may his soul rest in peace as an ancestor. But why should all white guys have all the fun? He talks about, how he had to operate to, I think he bought Beatrice Foods, and he was operating in behind the scenes to kind of build, but $1 billion business. We can do it. So historically, Brother Eric Williams, he also wrote a book about capitalism and slavery, but from Columbus to Castro, the history of the Caribbean. So within Eric Williams' work, he really discusses dynamics of how slavery is very important as the bedrock to make this capitalistic system go. So if you pay people little, the company makes big. That's why when it's time to lay off people, You lay off the people because it's dealing with salaries. It's easy logic to understand that, but you don't understand it because we get caught up because we don't then create our own jobs, so we don't have to worry about that. Walter Rodney, how Europe underdeveloped Africa. So, Walter Rodney, powerful brother, was attacked for writing this, and right now the Guyanese government, I think even Jamaica, are doing what they can to maybe get the family reparations for what they did, but how Europe underdeveloped Africa explains the dynamic. Africa's not backwards. You took all the resources out. You took the people away. How do you now have an opportunity to grow and develop when you've undeveloped them? So Walter Rodney wrote that, and then focusing on a book like that, Manning Marlborough, who's also deceased as an ancestor, wrote how capitalism underdeveloped Black America. Because right now, when you drive through little small towns in the South, used to be industry, used to be textiles, used to be places you had garment factories. You made things. I just showed you all those clothes earlier. Those clothes are made elsewhere, not in the United States. If it was made in the United States, people would have jobs. So right now, the jobs are taken abroad, and you see companies doing this. That guy named Manchin in West Virginia, this guy didn't even help his own West Virginian people out by having a certain company, I think it was a pharmaceutical firm, go abroad, close there, and they go abroad. This isn't happening now. That's what companies do. To what? Try to save money. Not worry about you as a person. You as a little person. It's about economic exploitation. Blueprint for Black Power by Amos Wilson. I think this is his magnus opus. Thick book to talk about what was really going on. As I said earlier about the whole issue of free trade, he breaks it down. He mentions some names that then came to fruition later on under the Obama administration. He wasn't even around during that time because he had passed in '95. But he's talking about these people, Timothy Geithner, these folks that were in other administrations, and then they're put in the other administrations, these same people. You recycle the same people to create the same problems. So there's a blueprint, and if it's that thick, people have talked about it, we have to read the work. We're not going to get it by looking at cartoons, looking at sitcoms, acting like burning our head like nothing's going on. We got to read the work. Last two books I'm going to mention because they're more contemporary. One is being banned by the so-called far right, being banned by white people or people that don't want to know about real history, is Isabel Wilkerson's book called Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents. She really breaks it down about this whole issue of how this caste system and how you're pigeonhole and you're segregating people here in the United States, and historically you generate hate. And so this is a book that many people don't want you to read, but she's a Pulitzer Prize winning author. And lastly, another Pulitzer Prize winning author, Nicole Hannah-Jones. Check out the 1619 Project. You can watch and look at the media and all the controversy around this. The point is that she's raising issues, not with just her, but she has other scholars in here. Carol Anderson's written in here. She's had a book called White Rage. Other authors, I'm just saying this. It's not just Nicole Hannah-Jones. She's just exposing as a journalist. And that's my point about when I read the Black Chronicles. Get a chance to get this. These used to be black articles and journals that black journalists could work for. Now with Jet Magazine pretty much gone, Ebony not around, you got all these places where you don't have the written literature anymore. So as a journalist, Nicole Hannah-Jones is doing her job to do that. So again, let me just encourage you to read as much as you can while it's not illegal yet. Take away your passport for reading, then you'll really be in trouble. So get all that knowledge that you can, break this down so we can understand how we can not continually be exploited and being taken advantage of, because we'll never be able to survive. So thanks for watching. Thank you for looking at the channel, and take care of yourself.